I just want to, how is everybody? My name is Mary Anderson, and I'm a disabilities advocate. Sorry, I'm trying to maneuver sharing my screen in Zoom. I have done it I have done it in Teams, so bear with me. So today we're going to be talking kind of a 5,000 a foot view of supported decision making. And I really wanted this to go backwards, and it's not. And I feel like, so just bear with me here as I maneuver through this. So, supported decision making is an alternative to guardianship. And so, first of all, thank you, Carly, for having me. I'm a disabilities advocate with North Dakota Protection Advocacy. And today we're going to kind of just go through the very basics of what is supported decision making and what goes into it. So we're going to talk capacity is going to be our first topic. And I am trying to maneuver again screens here. So I'm sorry, I have three of them up as if I need my Oh, Lord. Okay.
You're okay.
All right.
There, now you're back. Yep.
Now I'm back. Okay. So with this, the first one is when people think of capacity, there's two kind of areas. There's mental capacity and then legal capacity. So let's talk mental capacity first, because this is very separate from legal capacity. Mental capacity is when we talk about a person's cognitive abilities, and we're also talking about cognitive decision making. And so with that, what does that mean? Well, so it's when you start thinking cognitive decision making, it's identified by your values, your beliefs, things that you preference. And then when you go into legal capacity, this means you have rights, and that what you can do with those rights. Legally, you are your own decision maker. And this is where we start getting into terms that maybe you hear with some guardianships. The person retains the right to make their own decisions. And that's kind of where that starts. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for just a second. And okay, and I am going to just hold on 1 second because I'm not like, I'm sorry. I was playing with this and I had it all up and running. And then when I turned my screen on, okay, sorry.
You're
I'm
okay.
going to, so
We all know the joys of technology, right?
and with most of my presentations I've done, we are more of a um okay, so if I click on my screen here, it's just going to move. So we're just going to roll with it. So I'm going to learn not to click on it too much. Okay, until we're ready to advance. So with the legal capacity.
You reshare if you're wanting us to see what you're.
Oh, there we go. Thanks, Carly.
Yep, there you go.
I
Yep.
appreciate you.
No, you're good.
So with this, when we start talking about mental capacity, things that sometimes can affect mental capacity can be um, if there is a disability, age, illness, environment, and other factors. It's often considered like a snapshot in time. And it can be a moment in time. Sometimes we hear about people, elderly folks that maybe struggle when they have a UTI, but once the UTI is taken care of, um, they go back to not having confusion or things along those lines. So again, it's kind of like that snapshot. And of course, that's not clicking okay. So when you talk about doing an assessment for mental capacity, questions that they may ask is there any impairments, any cognitive impairments or brain functioning? Is the impairment kind of related to particular decision making. Sometimes when you talk about people that have different types of dementia, is it Alzheimer's? Is it a frontal lobe dementia? Does it impact, impulse control? Um, they also are going to ask, does the person really understand the information related to it? So sometimes when you hear about people, oh, they retain rights maybe in making decisions on residency and vocational. So where they live and where they work, but they don't retain the rights for legal. It's because at that time they were able to understand information about those particular areas, but they weren't able to maybe fully understand entering into a legal contract. The other thing is retention of the information. Can they use and weigh information? Are they able to do like pros and cons? Are they able to look at things from more than one perspective? Can they communicate their decisions? Are they able to say what their wants are and what they prefer? So, when you start looking at having a lack of mental capacity, now we have a lovely part of the North Dakota section of our century code that talks about if a person lacks the mental capacity or is incapacitated, there is can have an order of guardianship, and this is the statute that covers the guardianship in our North Dakota century code. And they have the term incapacitated person, which means basically it's anyone who could be impaired by any reason of mental illness, a mental deficiency, physical illness, disability, chemical dependency, to the point where at the time the person lacked the capacity to make or communicate decisions regarding the areas of resident education, medical treatment, legal affairs, vocation, finance, and other matters in which the incapacity could affect. So this, like I said, if you'd like more information, you can definitely go to the North Dakota Century Code. You can go ahead and just look at that information and really understand that. It's in great legal terms, as most statutes are. Okay, so then we kind of talked a little bit is what is guardianship? And really, we're going to break it down. It's a legal relationship, which we have somebody from the court who's appointed as a guardian to make decisions for another individual who's known as the ward or the subject of the guardianship. Sometimes you'll see in older guardianship papers, ward, we'll see that in other states sometimes still use that. But right now, we're seeing more of a person subject to guardianship. This means, and I'm going to break it down because this means that they can legally make decisions for the person subject to the guardianship. So when a guardianship is there, there is some responsibility and make sure like medical providers have that because maybe the guardianship oversees medical. But the other thing is you want to know where the guardianship, what areas it covers and if it's full or limited. We're going to get into that a little bit more too. Here we go. So we have some pie shapes here. We have full guardianship, which the guardianship decision making is illustrated in orange. So you can see in a full guardianship, the guardian makes most of the decisions. And in a limited, the person that has the guardian has a little bit more of that decision making. And these will vary from case to case, and they are often explained in court when the guardianship is established during that renewal time and then also in the guardianship papers. And we are very lucky is with North Dakota, we've got some guardian education. We have some other individuals at the state level who also monitors guardianships. But like I said, these two pie pieces do really give a good kind of a good visual of what is the difference. Now, in a perfect world with perfect guardianships and things along those lines, the ward or the person who has the guardianship should be involved in the decision making. The guardian should understand their wants and needs, but ultimately, the guardian can make decisions in the area in which the guardianship is set up on. Okay, best interests versus express wishes. So, when we look at guardianship or substituted decision making, there's always the component of best interests. Now, the guardian should do and make decisions on what they believe is the best interest. Now, supported decision making, on the other hand, is more based on express wishes. This means that the individual can decide what they want to do, which is their legal right, because at this point, they still retain their authority to make their own decisions. That has not been taken away by a court member. And sometimes, people need to have that trusted person that they can talk to and bounce ideas off of. That's the idea of a supported decision making model. You have somebody that's identified where you can discuss matters with and help weigh out the pros and cons of your decisions. Help you help the person look at that. The other area of this is dignity of risk. And it refers to that every person has the legal right to make their choices, take the risks that happen with the choices. We often hear about natural consequences of choices and things, kind of along those same concepts. Um, we want to make sure that with supporting individuals that they understand that they're only able to grow and expand if they have the ability to try. Um, and yes, it's human nature to want to protect and safeguard the person, but yet every person has that right to try and to fail. Now, it gets a little hairy when we start talking about health and safety issues, but if we look at a child learning to ride a bike, we all probably at one point had our most of us had our training wheels removed and we probably skinned our knees. Our parents probably knew at some point, guess what? They're going to fall and skin their knees, right? But they allowed us the opportunity for that risk of injury, the risk of skinning our knees to learn a new skill. And that's a great way to have that viewpoint. Duty of care. And with duty of care, it's a legal responsibility to ensure that people are not harmed by services and organizations and staff. Now, the problem is everybody thinks that when you talk about duty of care, it means basically we're going to, like the illustration shows, we're going to bubble wrap that person. We're going to wrap services around them to protect them, where maybe we need to ensure that we're protecting choices and allowing them to have that dignity of risk. One role of a guardian is to make sure that you're not overprotecting the person unnecessary. Is there restrictions? Is there things that, yes, that you might want to do to safeguard, but yet are we not allowing the person the opportunity to learn? So then we get into capacity and supported decision making. Now, capacity plays a role in a having some, understanding that they can make some decisions, but maybe not all of the decisions, making some decisions at some times, but not at other times. And then making decisions if they get the help to um to understand to make the decisions. I always say you can't make an informed decision if you're not given all the information. And that's really a great way to look at supported decision making, is having that identified person there to help. Is okay, let's look at all the facts. It's when you present them with information. I'm sure when we're looking, maybe I'll give the example of a cell phone contract. Do they want to enter into a phone contract, or do they want to do like a track phone where they can load minutes? Are they, being able to have that information, being able to be like, oh, do I really need to have costs associated with entering into a cell phone contract? Or would it be more cost effective for me to do track? And at that, you would have to look at what would be usage, at what point, many, many different factors. And just having somebody being able to be like, okay, did you look at it from this point of view? Did you look at it from this option? Okay, now we're going to kind of dig a little bit deeper into our next topic, exactly what is supported decision making. Okay, here is a great option is it really has three parts. We have the individual who still retains the right to make their decisions. We have a supporter whose job is to assist the person to still make the decision making and then to develop the agreement. So now when we look at century code and decision making in law, supported decision basically means assistance from a person that's already been identified by the individual. And it's basically to identify, collect, and organize documents and information that apply that may be helpful to a decision the individual is considering. So maybe they're being offered an elective surgery. So having that person have somebody that would have all the facts to go through and look at the benefits and the risk of having this elective surgery. To walk through documents, understanding maybe that they need to sign the agreement that they're going to be responsible for any costs outside of insurance. So what does that mean? Do they understand what their insurance is going to cover in an elective surgery? What are the other alternatives to the surgery? Is there, is it since an elective, could they utilize OT or PT? Would an option be, some alternative things? Like, would it be something like where, a more of a holistic approach to it? And having all of their choices available and then decide if surgery still is the best route. Help to communicate any decisions by the individual to that is requested of the individual. So at that point, maybe if I had my coworker wondering where I'm like, okay, I'm going to have you serve in as being my decision maker, and I want to make sure that she understands my wishes and what I want to happen and my plan of the surgery, but I want you there to help communicate in case I get tongue-tied and I can't come up with decisions. And to break this down, when you look at everything and under a subscribe, as a statute here, is if you're going to modify this or anything, it still goes under the guardianship or the possible conservatorship. So this is really the most least restrictive with supported decision making. The person still retains their rights. They have a person that they can talk to. They've got somebody to help them gather information, review the information, weigh pros and cons, and then also help them communicate their decisions. So the individual decision maker. So the other thing that you get to do with this is you get to identify what types of decisions you need assistance with. So again, when we looked at what guardianship could review, so residency, vocational, legal, medical, financial. So let's say for myself, I'm fine making my decisions where I live and where I work. Maybe where I need help is with medical. So I'm going to select that the person that I select to help me is only going to help me in medical. I don't need help with the other stuff. Or maybe they're just going to help with legal because maybe entering into contracts, signing leases, leasing a vehicle, anything where you have to enter into a contract, or if there's ever legal matters, and possible eviction, having somebody there that could help you go through things. If you're, or help you get the right resources. So if you are facing an eviction, is there community action? Would they be able to help? Is there somebody, an organization that can help stop the eviction? Is one way to look at that. The individual decision maker can actually have more than one supporter. So let's say for myself, I have a really good friend that is the vice president of mortgage at a bank. Okay, so I might select that person to help me with financial and with legal. And then I have another person I would like that is a physician's assistant. So I might want that person to help me with medical. That could help me understand the medical technology, the medical words and what this all means. Um, the other thing is just by having somebody there, you don't have to agree with them because you still retain that legal right to make the decision. And even let's say you're not happy with either person you select, you still have the opportunity to select another person, um, where, maybe you're facing an eviction and your person that you picked to help with legal matters really has never dealt with the eviction, how to stop an eviction, how to prevent an eviction, things along those lines. So you may go to a housing navigator. That's a term that we have down here with some of our programs. And that person might be able to walk you through and help you understand your choices. So when you start looking as a supporter, so if you've been elected as a person to support somebody to make the decisions, we have a great little section in our century code that talks about kind of the primary role of that is you're agreeing to provide assistance to that individual. And the other thing is you can't, so let's say I was going to Europe on a vacation for 3 weeks and the person I normally support needed help. Well, I can't have a successor or a substitute decision maker. It just doesn't work that way. So if that's my role to do that, then I need to probably be available. And in this day and age, with technology, emails, international cell phone plans and things like that, you would be available to kind of walk through those things. So now the agreement. So with the supported decision making agreement in North Dakota, it means that we're going to have a written, signed, dated, and witnessed. So somebody's got to witness that we're agreeing to this. And we're going to have it name the individual and the trusted supporter who agrees to provide assistance in the decision-making process to, basically allow the individual still the ability to make their own choices and make sure that they're informed and they get to make voluntary choices too within those areas that we kind of broke down. Healthcare, again, like the elective surgery, is this something you should do or you shouldn't do? Residence, where do you want to live? Or if I needed assistance where I needed to go to a nursing home short term for rehab because I had hip surgery and I didn't have anybody at home to help me with, making sure I got up and out of and did my therapies and stuff. So maybe I needed to do a short-term rehab stay. Um, that can be an issue of residence. Finances. So then again, we're talking about those financials. We're not going into a restrictive rep payee situation where we have somebody having control of that, or a fiduciary relationship, or things like that. I know we've heard about conservatorship, especially with Brittany and a few other of the conservators that we've heard a little bit about. It still allows me to have those freedoms, but yet somebody that I trust to give me advice and guidance on financial matters. Education. If you need somebody to be able to help you navigate educational choices, legal affairs, contracts, criminal matters, entering into leases and things along those lines, and vocation. Having somebody help you make decisions, if I want to look at hiring for a new job, and I want to switch a job. Am I qualified? How do I ask for accommodations with a new employer if I need those? And things along those lines that those supporters can help with. So the existence or the contents of the supported decision-making agreements, you can't use as evidence to determine if somebody's does not have capacity or not competent or have competency. That's not an option. Supported decision making under the law presumes the individual has capacity to enter into the agreement, and this presumption can only be rebutted by clear and convincing evidence. So that's a lot of information, but we need to go back to those first screens of when we talked about capacity. Um, you we can't use a supported decision making agreement as, yep, this is our next step to attain guardianship. That's again not the purpose of this. The purpose of this is to allow the individual to retain their rights to make their own decisions. They're just identifying a person that they can talk to about those matters. So, a lot of people have an option is supported decision making is an alternative for guardianship. It is considered least restrictive. So with but we want to make sure that when you look at the guardianship laws, one thing that with guardianship, they have to show there's no other options for the individual to safeguard their health, safety, and and their habilitation. And that's identified again in our North Dakota Century Code. And the supported decision making can be that alternate option in lieu of guardianship. And again, it's considered least restrictive for those that, we use that term a lot, but it is a way that the person can retain their rights. So, some advantages for supported decision making over guardianship. One, only the courts can change a guardianship. So, with that, to establish a guardianship, it does cost some money. And for some individuals, this is a great alternative while they're deciding if a guardianship is needed. The agreements, you don't need to go to court. Again, we just need to have a witness, as we talked about. And you get to have the agreement between the individual and then also the supporter. And it can be easily changed, updated, revised, or even terminated and ended. This is something that can be done without having to go to court and have additional fees. And the individual also can have more than one person that where they're recognizing that each person may have their own strength or knowledge and abilities to help them make decision versus that restrictive guardianship. And the one thing is with it is supported decision making can be perceived as a natural fit with guardianship. So again, we're going to go back to our century code. It already requires under general powers the duty of a guardian to be involved as fully as practical in decision making with respect to the individual's arrangements, healthcare, and other aspects. Now, is if somebody starts off with the supported decision making where, boy, things may not be going in the direction, maybe they need more help, they're really not making the decisions, the supporters are having to maybe lead or what they feel guide the individual, is the supported decision making can also translate into a guardianship, that if that's needed with the framework. And I don't want to scare anybody or say, oh, you do this, the next step is guardianship. No, with this, it can be more of that transition as people's needs change, because uh, everything can be ever flowing, things can be fluid, people's needs could change. Okay, so let's break down and let's kind of talk about this a little bit more. So let's talk about supported decision making. Okay, so how do we get this kind of started? So there could be a lot of discussions. I hope there's a lot of discussions. I hope this isn't something people enter into lightly. Um, if somebody approaches you to be somebody that supports them, questions that you might want to ask is, okay, what kind of choices have you made? Let's talk about what's happened in the past. What choice are you, or what questions are you having today? Who made the choice? Has the person depended on somebody else to kind of be that person to help? Natural kind of, when we think about that is, your natural resources, maybe your parents when you're younger. I know, gosh, the first time bought my own car, that went and got my own car, I was asking my parents all kinds of questions. Is this a good interest rate? And all the questions. So, you know, you may have to kind of talk about, who's helped you in the past. How did you make the choice? How did you end up making that choice? Walk me through the process of that. What did you like or not like about having to make the choices? Was it a tough decision? Was it an easy decision? Did you have all the facts? Can you think of anything that would have helped you to make the decision better? So, that question alone is a great lead into support, really if supported decision making is an appropriate fit. Is if they felt that, what would have helped it better, it wouldn't have been better. And it wouldn't have been, and maybe nothing would have made the situation better. Maybe it would have, maybe it complicated things. Maybe the person felt like the supporter they chose made things more complicated than they needed to be. All right, I'm going to take a drink here. Now, here's a benefit that I want everybody to think about. You can use supported decision making to build capacity. What I mean by that is, so if you have somebody where people are talking, you know, if a guardianship is needed, or a conservator or a fiduciary, you can show how supported decision making has been very effective for the individual. And here's the thing is the joke is you don't, when you got to eat an elephant, you start one bite at a time, kind of with that same concept. We're going to start small. And, the big thing that, you want to talk to the individual about is, what decisions do they want control of? Where do they want, what do they want to identify as being important decisions to them? Some people might say, oh my gosh, I really want to be able to have control of my own finances because right now I have a rep payee and they only give me $10 a week in spending money. Well, maybe that person doesn't understand that after their bills, they only have $10 a week after, their shelter, food, and other necessities are taken care of. But they think if they gain that control, they're going to have access to all their money, and maybe they don't understand the consequence of not paying their bills. The other thing you can do is kind of role play. You can practice things. Is, what do they need to help with at that time? Okay, so at that time, maybe a decision is, I don't like my pharmacy. Okay, well, where do you want to look at? What is close to you? What do you want a pharmacy? Things along those lines. Um, the other thing you can do is ask the individual if they want anybody else helping them make decisions. Just because they're coming to you doesn't mean you have to be the person to identify as their supporters. And you can also identify roles. We've already talked that you can have more than one supporter for the individual. The other thing is I would identify what their role is, what their function is going to look like. How are they going to help serve that individual? Whoops. Sorry, now I lost my mouse here. Oh dear. Hold on. Sorry, guys. There it is.
You're all right. You're all
Oh, I went to go move my thing and now I gotta find what I'm doing here again. Okay. Okay. Am I sharing? I am sharing. There we go.
Yes, you're back.
Okay, now I gotta move my. I love having multiple screens, but I don't like when I
Yeah,
can't.
it adds to the confusion. Yes, I agree.
It does. Oh,
And I get it. We are Zoom users and you guys are Teams users, so we get thrown
we
off
are,
when we come into your
Carly.
meetings. Yeah.
I was gonna say, Carly, you know how I work. There we go. Oh, maybe not. There. Okay. So back to our brainstorm. So there's actually a website here and it's really simple, www.supporteddecisionmaking.org. This has a great reference guide that you can actually use. And then also, if you Google North Dakota Protection and Advocacy, um, we also have a worksheet for individuals and decision makers that kind of walk you through what decisions that you may need to make and how you want to make those. The agreements are not intended to be permanent. And guess what? It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be like, all right, that worked. It didn't work. It's okay. Right now with the decisions, no decision's too big and no decision is too small. This is often new for a lot of people and it's, you got to try it and see what works. Okay. So when you need to start identifying your supporters, we kind of talk that the individual gets to pick a supporter. And the one thing is just because you're asked doesn't mean you have to commit to it. So, you can deny it if you think, this is maybe too much of a responsibility or time commitments or things along those lines, or you move away or you get sick or a family member gets sick. It's okay. Um, Definitely make sure that when you do agree to be a supporter that you are understanding the commitment that you are making to the individual, and you might get multiple calls about multiple things. So that's something just for everybody to be aware of. Okay. So we definitely want to make sure that individuals can help identify supporters. So first of all, maybe they're an individual whose social circle and natural supports are very small and they don't have a lot of maybe people that they could identify as a supporter right away. So one thing that you can do is, especially if you're a case manager and they're looking to do this, there's a great worksheet. And again, you can go to our website and you can get that worksheet to do with the individual. Carly, I think of like your job of all the individuals you help and do great case management with. This is a great option too to have. It's a great resource. Okay, so when you think about who should be a supporter, so let's take Carly's role here. She's a case manager. She's helping one of her people through this. Things that you want to keep in mind that makes a great supporter, okay? You got to be a good listener. And you need to be able to understand kind of where the individual is coming from. What are their values? What's their culture? Is there a cultural factor in this? What is their preferences? You want to be able to also gather information and research information. You want to be able to follow directions without judgment. You know, if someone says, I want to move to the North Pole because I want to live where it's cold. Now, you might be a person that doesn't like the cold weather and be like, why would you want to do that? You should move to Florida where it's warm and sunny year round. You only have to deal with a few hurricanes. You know, is you want to make sure that you're not projecting your values, your beliefs onto the individual. You're being able to be that neutral person that's just able to provide the facts, able to assist even when things seem risky or unwise, or against your beliefs. You might have somebody that you're working with that wants to look into birth control. Maybe that's something that you've read that there's a lot of risk with birth control, or some experimental medication that's just coming on for a study. A lot of cancer patients make those decisions, and you want to make sure that you're not projecting your own values, your own opinions onto the individual. You're just there to gather facts and present the facts, able to communicate decisions clearly on the behalf of the individual. You want to be able to understand what their wishes are and be able to communicate it in the manner in which the individual would ask you to. So, um, so at this point also, you can't sign documents. Even as a decision maker, you can't enter into things. You are there just as a support person, a support role. Know that also you're not legally responsible for any contracts that they decide to enter in. Supporting supporters. So again, let's go back into like Carly's case management role. So let's say you're helping a client and you have all the releases, everything's perfect for you to work to talk to their supporter. And the supporter has questions. The supporter is kind of feeling like maybe they don't understand, um, their role. Maybe the supporter is taking on more of a restrictive role where they're providing more information or trying to convince or persuade people. The great thing is with supported decision making, it really ensures that the individual, because they still retain that legal right to make the decision. So really, it's going to kind of force the individual to make decisions where they might say, you know what, I don't agree with you. I'm still going to make this decision. The biggest thing you do need to know, you need to know the individual. You know, you need to know what is their preferred method of communication. Years ago, years and years ago, when I was a baby case manager, my first case manager job, um, I had a client who had some processing disabilities, and verbal communication was not her preferred method. So we started emailing each other. And the emails that I received from her were amazing. She was able to take time to put her thoughts down and put them together in a method and way she was able to communicate her wants and needs. So especially when we were like planning team meetings and stuff where at the team meetings she would shut down. She wouldn't. So what I ended up doing was sending emails with the questions I would normally ask her at the meeting. And I said, I'm going to share this with at the meeting. And I would just print out the email and it had her wishes. And we were able to really develop that individualized plan for her because we understood her preferred method of communication. What kind of information is most meaningful? You know, alternative methods, you want to definitely look at things. Alternative methods. You have to look at things from every aspect. What is the person's understanding of the decision? Do they understand fully what's going to happen when they enter in and make this decision? So as a supporter, you might want to start asking questions like, is there anything else you want people to know? How much time do you need to make this decision? There's people that need to sleep on it. There are people that need to process things, and processing looks different for a lot of different people. So, and is there something that the individual would like to talk about with the decision? Is how does this, if I make this decision, is there going to have long-term effects of this decision? What does that look like? How do we talk through this? Again, kind of using assistive technology. Is the person better with writing things down, typing things down? Do they do better texting? Goodness gracious, I'm telling you, I don't think I could be a case manager in any capacity without a cell phone this day and age. I just would think that would be have to. Voluntariness. Remember, the supporter is not doing anything. The supporter shouldn't have any skin in the game, which means, you know what? You are there just to support. This isn't going to, you are not going to benefit. You are not going to have, you're not tied legally to some of these decisions. You're there just to support those decisions. So the other thing is having the eye on the prize. So having an eye on the finish line. So, okay, so let's kind of walk through this of how to look at the how versus not the what. Okay. So your person says, I want to move out. And what you're hearing is you want me to support you in where you want to live. Okay. Rather than being like, okay, well, let's get the want ads up. Let's pull up some possible renting places. Let's look at putting your house on the market. Maybe take it a step back and being like, do you need help making that decision? Or are you okay? Or is there only a part of things that you need help with? Always make sure your questions are open-ended. We want to make sure that you're not, you're not convincing somebody. You're not, trying to sway them one way or another. Make sure that you're just offering this stuff in an open-ended manner. Practical considerations. So with this, the American Bar Association has developed this practical tool to help attorneys in identifying least restrictive decision-making options. Now, here's the thing. I am not an attorney. I don't play one on TV or over Zoom. Okay. I do not practice law in any way. But what you can do with this is one thing you always want to look at is guard, you know, is the guardianship needed or is it not needed? Is there just little modifications or little changes that are needed to support them? So always understand, you need to understand the reason and help identify the reason for the concern. Ask if a triggering concern might be causing temporary or reversible conditions. The other thing is the community. Can concerns be addressed by connecting them to family or community resources? Kind of when we were talking about that eviction, what are homeless prevention services available? Um, I do believe 211 does that information statewide. Team, you know, ask with, is there anybody else you want to bring in on this decision? Is there anybody else that we can help you make decisions on? Always identify what is their ability, their strengths, and if there is any limitations at all in how they're going to make a decision. Um, Challenges. You want to look for any things that might be little bumps on the road as long as we go along here. Um, if if this is more than what supported decision making is, okay, what are next steps? What does that look like? You know, but you want to make sure that the person's values and preferences are always valued. Some of this comes into the controversial end of life stages. For myself, my parents have made me medical power of attorney, and but you know what? I know exactly what they want at that time, and, making sure that knowing that role and everything you want. And then always making sure that you limit things. If a guardianship is needs to happen, make sure it's limited. It has a limited scope, which means if they only need help with financial, let's say they've been a victim of financial exploitation, or maybe concept of bill paying, it can be hard for anybody, is if it's just that financial aspect, you don't need to do a full restrictive guardianship because there's one area that they need some assistance in. Look at a limited guardianship where the person actually can be a part of that decision making process. Okay. Ooh, we're rolling along here. What do you need in writing? Is short answer nothing. Okay. Presentation over. I'm kidding. All right. So you can do this informally. You can do it without a written agreement. You can just be that person that they talk to and they say, "Hey, I want to make a decision." However, I'm going to say, just as with anything, it's always better to have it in writing. So then both people have a copy of it and understand their roles and responsibilities and what they're doing. Okay, so we're going to talk about the benefits of a written. So you might actually have the individual that you're helping might sign releases of information to help you disclose what could be confidential information or documentation about the individual. And then also the individual might also um, make some information or might sign releases for you. And I'm thinking when you think about releases of information, I always kind of go to like the HIPAA, the medical information. You can't obtain anything, even with like a teenage kid, without authorization because it's protected health information. So, kind of that same way, you're not going people are not just gonna, in this day and age, you can't just call the bank and be like, "So, I'm helping Jane Doe. Could you tell me the balance in her account, please?" Nobody's going to give that to you. Um, One thing that I heard really interesting is I had a friend of mine who went to go deposit money in her child's checking account. Both accounts were at the bank and she had cash and she said, "Oh, can you put this in my son's account?" She was not identified as a person on that account and they wouldn't even allow you to put money in. So making sure that, there is authorization. And, you know, You may need a release of information in addition to the financial and the health for education records if you ever need to obtain a transcript. Okay, the written agreement, the liability protections of the supporter. Okay, so we want to make sure that the supporter is doing things in good faith, which means they're honestly and believing that they're doing the right thing and they're not going to be liable for anything unless things get a little hairy is if they're reckless. So let's say they wanted to purchase a car, okay? And the supporter happens to run a used car lot, right? And this person wants to buy a car. And so they go to this individual and they need financing. And the supporter says, "Don't worry, we can hook you up with financial. We deal with financial. We've got places." So the supporter, because they know they work with these entities and things along those lines, and there may be benefits for them, they get a 22% interest rate on a car loan, whereas if they would have went to their bank, I don't know, what are they, 5, 6, 7% now? So that's where that not really acting in the best interest, being a little, the other thing would be like, you want to go buy a car? Okay, go buy a car. You're fine. You know what to do. And they enter in and they lease a brand new Jeep Grand Wagoneer that their payments are going to be $6,000 a month. And they're on a limited fixed income. Okay, not real good there. So might be negligent in that. And then if we can bury into the century code of misconduct, that undue influence, I'm your supporter. Do you want to, you should really be paying me like $50 a month for my time and services to this, things like that. We don't, no, nope, nope, nope. Okay. So also with this, there's liability protection for a third party. Third parties receiving a copy of the agreement should rely on the agreement unless there's reason to believe that the individual is being abused, neglected, or exploited by the supporter. Kind of gave you a couple of ideas. Actual knowledge or notice that maybe the agreement may be invalid or has been terminated. Maybe the person only gave the person authority for 6 months and it ended on July 1, 2022. Okay, they bring this to you. It's, January 10, 2024. It's not valid. So you want to make like that. Again, third parties are generally protected from the liability as long as they're acting in good faith and supporting you're relying on the support decision making agreement. Okay, so where it gets interesting is sometimes there's no liability protection for the third party. So the third party is not protected from charges of professional misconduct or immune from liability of that. So what does that mean? So third party, which means you're outside of the individual and the supporter. So maybe you're the landlord, right? And they decide they're going to come and live with you on your apartment or your property. And you realize, oh, they get housing assistance. Okay, well, you know what? Maybe we charge the rent a little bit more than what we would consider fair market value. Maybe we don't need to repair the electric, every time they put in their vacuum cleaner, the lights dim, or there's a live wire above the shower, things along those lines. And then also, if you fail to provide documents, records, or other information to either the individual or the supporter who has written authorization to gain copies. So if you're that used car salesman and you don't give the individual their purchase agreement. They have no idea how much they're actually going to have to purchase. I don't know about you guys, but I went to go purchase a car. Oh Lord, probably like 15 years ago now. And I always have hated doing anything like that by myself, just because I even hate taking my car to the mechanic. I just do. It's just too Carly's not nodding over there. It's just something that I just prefer not to do. My husband does a great job of this stuff. Um, and so I went to go purchase a car, and I got my purchase agreement from the dealer. And so I took that to my bank. So I knew how much I needed to finance, right? So I went in, got the money, got the check from my bank based on the purchase agreement. Well, lo and behold, this dealership was going to charge me an additional $150 for processing documents or something that was not on the purchase agreement. I walked away from it. I went and paid back my loan. I didn't have to pay back any interest. And I said, I'm going to another dealership. To me, they should have disclosed that fee at that time. So that's the kind of stuff that you want to make sure that, with the third parties, is the person is getting all the information that they need to make an informed decision. The individual and the supporter. If I was a supporter for somebody who was going to buy a car, I'd ask for the purchase agreement. And if all of a sudden they want to take out a loan without a purchase agreement, or forget to do the licensing and the tab work or something, where, God, that could be an issue. Okay, so now we're going to talk about liability protection and authorizations. So any person or organization who releases personal information about the individual to a supporter who has a written authorization to receive the information is generally protected by allegation of improper information sharing, unless they know that maybe the authorization has been revoked. I don't know if any of you have been in a case where somebody has revoked the authorization. That does happen. Or if that person knows that the supported decision-making agreement is no longer valid, like what we talked about, expired, it was only supposed to be good for 6 months, the person pulled it, or knowing or recklessly disclosing information beyond the scope of the authorization. Most authorization says, to talk about this stuff. Well, if all of a sudden the third party starts talking about a lot of other information that is not relevant to what the authorization should disclose, that's an issue. The supporter cannot allow unauthorized access or disclosure to any confidential records, documents, or other information about the individual unless the individual has granted them access to do so. So you want to make sure that you understand your role as a supporter, or even if you're helping somebody identify as a supporter, who their supporters should be about this information. We all know not to give out our social security card, our numbers. We all know, we all get spam text messages that there's a package at the UPS. That's my favorite one I get right now. Is we all know about those typical scammy stuff. But the thing where it can get a little hairy is, even as a supporter, you don't want to give away confidential information that could put the person at risk of being scammed or exploited. Okay, so with the written agreement, so now we got to the point where, we decided we're going to do this. Both parties understand the roles, know the scope. We're going to now develop the written agreement. So here is what needs to happen for it to be a valid support agreement. This also is good for those that maybe are going to be serving clients that have somebody that they've identified. So you need to either have it notarized or have two qualified witnesses witness the signature of the support of the agreement. Okay, so you may have two people where you identify, hey, I'm going to have them witness our signature and that we're going over it. Now, you probably don't want, maybe to avoid a conflict of interest, maybe you don't want a spouse of the supporter or something. You might want a neutral third party, your two neutral third parties to sign. Okay, so here's what you need to have qualified witnesses. One, not be a party of the agreement. So the witness cannot be the individual or the supporter. They have to be at least 18. They have to be competent. So with that, I don't, you want to make sure that the person is competent that is signing, not to be an employee or an agent of the supporter in the agreement. So let's take it as you are a case manager for the individual. Do you think here, and I don't know, I'm going to see if I can open the chat windows, is my question is with this. So you are a case manager for somebody, and do you think that with this agreement, you could be a signer of an agreement if you're serving in the case manager role? So if you guys want to type your message into the chat, we're not going to move on until I get an answer. Okay, so Melissa says no. So you're a case manager for the individual, okay? You could sign this because you're not an employee or an agent of the supporter. You are supporting the individual. Okay, but now here's my question is where I want you guys to think about this a little bit. Is probably there's some agency policies and procedures that say, nope, you're not going to do that, right? I mean, there's probably some guidelines. I know there's guidelines in my role as an advocate of what I can and can't sign and what I can and can't do. Chances are the same thing. So I would reflect back to your agency. So if your answer was no, based on your agency policy, you are correct. Oh Lord, now, okay. Okay, so this is how basic the supported decision-making agreement is. So this is a supported, and again, we have it on our North Dakota Protection Advocacy website. We have a supported decision maker agreement template. And we have all kinds of great information on our website. So, and it can be as simple: name, birthday, address, contact information, email. I'm voluntary entering into this agreement with following the supporter who I've chosen. So the person is identifying the supporter, the birthday, address, telephone number, and relationship. That's how easy this can be done. And the great thing is then you would have your signature. Now you don't need all your demographic information and things along those lines. I often joke around that entering into a few things is pretty tough. So this is as simple. Now you don't need to disclose like social security numbers, any previous names. I don't know how many times they get asked that into things. Okay, so the other thing is you want to support the individual that decided to have somebody help them make decisions. This is a big deal because it's still allowing the person to feel like they have control of their life, able to make decisions about their life, and you are just there doing a supporting role. You're allowing the individual to be the star of the play, allowing them to direct and do whatever they want, which is great. Okay, so this is how a termination agreement can be terminated. So you can have, now if you see orally, if you decide as the supporter you don't want to be it, you're going to have to jump. So, but the individual controls the aspect of things. So the individual can terminate by telling you through an AT device, by any other act of showing intent, and in writing, and by any additional method specific in the agreement. So if there's something that was previously agreed upon in the agreement that's added to, you can do that. Now, for the supporter, they can terminate the agreement in writing and then any other method. Okay. Court can't go in and say, guess what, this isn't valid. The only way that they can is if there's anything specified in the agreement. Convicting the supporter of a crime involving abuse, neglect, or exploitation. Issuing a restraining order to protect the individual from the supporter, and determining that the supporter lacks capacity to make or communicate reasonable decisions during concerning matters affecting health or safety of the individual. Okay, so you can either, there's a small number here. So, any questions right now that we have over supported decision making? If so, feel free to ask away. You can unmute
You can
yourself.
unmute or type in the chat. Either way. Great numbers today, Mary. You're very popular. 31.
Oh,
One of our highest attended live, I think. Good
wow.
for
Well,
you.
that's great. How many do we have, Carly?
We are at 31 right now, so
Okay,
I
perfect.
think we had 32 at the very top. So
Okay, great. Well, if anybody has any questions, we'll open that up. If not, we can kind of roll on a little bit, and feel free like to unmute and say, hey, I have a question. That's okay. Because maybe you're like me and are a Teams user versus a Zoom user. I get it. Okay. So I know I threw a lot of stuff kind of out at you. So here's some information. So you can go to the North Dakota Century Code and you can Google okay, Google is my favorite search engine. It's wonderful. I can type in what I'm looking for, and you can type in North Dakota Century Code, and then you're going to get this great page, and you can type in supported decision making, guardianship, and it's actually going to take you to the statutes. That was something that I loved. Okay. The other thing is there's alternatives to guardianship, and that's done through Disability Rights of North Dakota. My personal favorite is the Protection Advocacy webpage. We have all kinds of information on our main page, so you can Google North Dakota Protection Advocacy or Protection Advocacy in North Dakota, any combination. So, and you'll find a worksheet in there, some templates, some more frequently asked questions. We also have a YouTube channel that you can go on and look at stuff. And then national, you can just Google all kinds of information. The very first supported decision-making case is the Jenny Hatch story. Google that. It's great information if you've got questions. National Resource Center for Supported Decision-Making, easy to read supported decision-making materials. So there's all kinds of this, and you can really gear this and customize it and make it individualized for the individual. Okay, so we're going to kind of run through this is summary. Remember, supported decision-making is a tool, and it can be used formally or informally. That's up to the individual. But it really allows the individual to retain their legal decision-making authority and rights. They get to retain their rights. And it can be an alternative to guardianship. And it's also a way to maybe also, if they have a guardian but they don't want a guardian, you can actually start using this model to help build capacity for when the next time the guardianship is under review, or if you want to take it to court. Again, there's sometimes fees involved with court. That would be something I would talk to somebody about. But the great thing about this, there's a lot of great success stories, is people are able to restore capacity and terminate guardianship by using supported decision making. And I have seen this with a lot of individuals that I've worked in to be very successful. And if you're working in as a case manager, Q, whatever, program management, um, this is a great way to really ask some questions about what the person wants. Um, it's a great alternative, and I've seen a lot of successes with it. Okay, so we're going to do a scenario. And again, we're going to use a chat feature. So we won't move forward until we get a couple of answers. So this is Chester. So Chester's going to go to the dentist. The dentist identifies the need to have surgery and wants to do surgery that day. Chester's accompanied by Janice. The dentist asks Janice to sign a consent for Chester to have the surgery. Chester doesn't have a guardian. What should Janice do? So if you either want to unmute or type, that would be greatly kind of thought-provoking. Ask Chester about his wishes. I love that. I love explaining information to the individual for them to sign themselves. Great. Chester needs to make the decision. I love it. Monica, tell the dentist that we'll need to wait and have a decision with Chester to help him make an educated choice. Wonderful. I love asking what he would like to do and listen to the response. Perfect answers. Oh, Lord, now I got to get back down to my screen again. Tell me other people have these issues with multiple screen stuff. Either that, Carly, or we're going to have a Teams to Zoom.
Support group.
Yes.
I know, I need to go too for the other way around.
Oh, I can help you with that, girl. So, oh, I had it there. I thought
Oh,
there. Oh, there we go. Okay. So basically, Janice can tell the dentist, it's Chester's decision and he may need time to make it. At that time, Janice can ask Chester what he thinks, and they can talk about while the dentist sees the next patient. Then, or we can take information home and he can make the decision at a later time. Okay. So now what should kind of Janice's role be, maybe as the supporter? She should review the surgery form with Chester. She should ask if he's had surgery before. Does he understand if he has to go under? What does that look like? She also asks if he wants to talk to anybody else about this. Does he have any other people that may have knowledge? And finally, she should ask if he wants to sign the form. Okay. So back when we look at it, going back to the basics, Chester is his own legal decision maker, right? It's his decision. He has the authority. Even if there is a guardian with authority, the same process can be used to empower. That's what we should be encouraging with guardianships, is allowing the person to have a say in things. Now, I understand there are times when you do have to make some tough decisions as a guardian, but as a guardian, you should know your individual that you're supporting, and you should be able to maybe present the information in which they would understand. Yep. And guess what? I think, oh, how do I stop my sharing? Oh, there we go. There we go.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So any other questions that anybody has, is do you guys want me to I can send the PowerPoint to Carly if you guys would like.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I think that would be helpful because you had all those links in there too, then they
Yeah.
click right on them, yeah.
Okay, I can send
Oh,
that
cool.
PowerPoint.
So it'll go up right with the recording for this, right next to it will be the slides and then the
Okay.
CEU request too, so.
Okay, great. Does anybody else have any questions about the supported decision making or anything along those lines? Because we want to make sure that ultimately it's looked at kind of least restrictive, which I know we probably all talk about, but really ultimately we want to support people to retain their rights. And if they have the authority to make decisions, allow that, we want them to retain that. Again, when you think about it, we all probably need to maybe bounce ideas and use our natural support sometimes to make decisions. It doesn't mean that we all need a guardian and our rights should be taken away. Okay. Well, Carly, this was awesome. Thank you so
Yes,
much
thank
for
you.
having us.
Great
And
information.
great. And I will get the PowerPoint emailed out to Carly here as soon as we're done. All right. Anything else that anybody has? Oh, well, thank you. Thank you guys too. I hope this was great information. And again, Google, we'll go ahead and get the PowerPoint to you, but there's a lot of great resources and stuff. And if anybody has questions or anything, please, we've got an email address that you can email. We've got a YouTube our YouTube channel link. Oh my gosh, it's been a long day. Um, and we can go that route. So thank you, everybody. And I will give you 8 minutes of your day back.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mary. We
Yes.
appreciate your time.
Great.
Thanks
Thank
everyone for
you.
coming.
Yep. Anytime, lady. Bye.
Bye.